Hello and welcome to Diecast Restos. My name is Jason and this is Lesney's Matchbox 47C DAF Tipper Container Truck. It was released in 1968 and converted to Superfast in 1970. It lasted until 1972 when it was retired. The models were initially released in turquoise, paired with a yellow tipper body that could be raised and lowered. A hydra sleeve allowed the container to remain in the raised position. It also came with a removable grey plastic roof, inevitably missing on this example. The green tinted plastic windscreen was standard across all models, but is cracked and broken on mine. The colour was changed from turquoise to silver early on in the production run, though all other components remained the same. Here is how a mint 47C appears. And this is what it is based on, a DAF FA 2600. Firstly, I removed the red plastic base from the casting, which helps to secure the window piece and provides the grille detailing. As this piece was in a contrasting colour to the cast body, no silver trim was ever applied to the model. The broken window will need replacing, and I've managed to source a replacement online. I couldn't find any reproduction pieces. Despite this casting missing its protruding metal piece to fit through the hydra sleeve, the plastic hydra sleeve itself remains in place and can be moved backwards and forwards depending on the desired resting position. Here I have two turquoise examples, one which I will restore while the other will act as a donor. Many of the model's components are shared with the 48C DAF girder truck, which was released in 1968 as well. The DAF 2600, which both models are based on, was unveiled in 1962 in Amsterdam. It was released to much fanfare as it was one of the first trucks to be designed around the driver. Ergonomics were key, with excellent visibility, suspension seats, and a sleeper cab with bunk beds. It also had excellent heating, ventilation and sound insulation to reduce engine noise, while all the controls were at the fingertips of the driver. The large cube-shaped cabin was very out of the ordinary compared to the cramped space that many drivers would have previously suffered through the 50s that would have had limited visibility and basic creature comforts. The Dutch company utilised the British Leyland P680 11.1 litre 6-cylinder diesel engine, capable of 220 horsepower. DAF later produced this engine in its own plant rather than importing from the UK, and this was licensed by Leyland. The engine was uprated to 11.6 litres and 250 horsepower in 1968. Then in 1972, a turbocharger was added, increasing power output to 324 horsepower. This also meant the cab was mounted higher on the frame in order to allow the turbo to fit. Production of the 2600 ended in 1973, replaced by the 2800 F241 series. The 2600 had transformed DAF from a small local manufacturer into a serious international competitor in the haulage industry. So here is my solution to the missing post problem. I grind down a pop rivet to fit in the divot where the old post had previously been positioned. Now I do a test fit to ensure that when it is stuck down permanently later on, the container will fit properly and still tilt. Yep, that looks good, so I move on to polishing up my second-hand eBay window piece. This had clearly been taken from a model that had been played with, as there were plenty of scuff marks across the surface. Now I prepare to paint strip my three models, and I can later decide which chassis to utilise for my builds. Next, the three yellow containers. I have previously restored the 58C girder truck back in September 2019, but I'll leave a link here to that video. It's worth a watch. Only 7.5 minutes, but I do talk about the history of DAF a little bit. This saves me repeating myself, and those hardy viewers who have watched all of my restorations won't have to suffer the repetition either. There is a lot of polishing with the wire wheel to be done here. As I'm stripping all these castings, that's 6 main components, plus I have to swap out the brushes from the large circular brush to the narrower one, which will dive deep into the nooks and crannies. My larger one does just fit inside the container though. The benefit of using these brushes is that it removes any last remaining flecks of paint that the caustic soda has failed to shift. The harsher steel-based brushes, aside from jamming into your clothing as they gradually disintegrate, they do create a rough surface for the primer to cling onto, if you will. Now I permanently glue on the replacement tipping support pillar. This glue is too liquidy for this job, and tends to either spill out everywhere or not come out at all. I really need some better stuff. Either way, once dried, the pop rivet serves its new purpose in life. To disguise it some more, I use my Vallejo plastic putty between the mandrel and the rivet body. This then gets filed away to smooth it off. Now I prime each of the components in Tamiya's light grey fine surface primer. It's always important to remove all the paint before this step, as the fine primer doesn't completely cover the existing patches. It's particularly tricky to remove all the remnants on commercial vehicles and trucks like this, especially with the wheel arches and the gaps between them. This model is replicating the turquoise, and for that I'm spraying on Tamiya's TS41 Coral Blue. Outdoors, the paint finish doesn't look quite as vivid as under the studio lights, but I'll show off both silver and turquoise models at the end of the video. All castings had yellow containers, so for these I'm putting on some Tamiya TS34 Camel Yellow, one of the darker yellow shades Tamiya offer. Now it jumps to night time as I apply the barely noticeable against the primer TS30 Silver Leaf, another one that will look better under the studio lights. Beginning my reassembly, I slot the hydro sleeve back onto the container, the wrong way. And now the moment of truth, will the post fit and will the hydro sleeve hold? I think that's a win. So now I move on to refitting the wheels on the axles and securing the tipper axle. And each of the axle ends are coated in chrome from my 2mm Molotow paint pen. So here are all of the components for my original silver casting. I first drop in my second-hand salvaged plastic window piece. The plastic grille and base section will hold the window in position. I force the base down over the shallow rivet and that clicks on. All that leaves is the reproduction grey plastic container roof. Okay, let's remind ourselves how the silver 47C DAF Tipper Container Truck looked to start off. It had a cracked plastic windscreen that needed a replacement sourced, and it was missing the aforementioned plastic container roof that many second-hand examples would usually be missing. It had patchy, flaky paintwork all over, and, not that you can see it here, had the tipper pillar broken off that held the tipper in the raised position. So let's take a peek at how the tatty tipper now looks. It has been refreshed in Tamiya TS30 Silver Leaf and TS34 Camel Yellow on the container. The other turquoise model received the TS41 Coral Blue. The rough wheels have been coated with Citadel to revitalise them, and the axle ends chromed. The tipper post has been fixed using a pop rivet and moulded to shape using some plastic putty. The reproduction lid sits atop the container, while my second-hand window has polished up a treat. In addition, the grille and base were cleaned up too. So stick around until the end of the video to see the turquoise model restored. Leave a like, hit that subscribe button, leave a comment, and support the channel on Patreon if you can. Links are in the description and at the end of this video. Also, do check out my Instagram for early previews of the next projects. That just leaves me to say thanks for watching, and I'll see you again for the next one. Bye for now.